Just give me a countdown.
3, 2, 1, we're live.
Hello, everyone. This is Tom Fox for our inaugural video recording of the Hill Country Podcast. Today, I'm in the offices of the Texas Hill Country Advisors, and I'm with Gilbert Paid and Andrew Gay. And before we get started, they're going to give us a little disclaimer.
Yes, sure will.
Disclosure, that's our business.
Securities and investment advisory services offered through Next Financial Group, member FINRA SIPC. Texas Hill Country Advisors is not an affiliate of Next Financial Group. This material is not intended as an offer or solicitation for the purchase or sale of any security or other financial instruments. Past performance does not guarantee future performance. All the views expressed are those of Andrew Gay and Gilbert Paid and Texas Hill Country Advisors and not those of Next Financial Group. The S&P 500 is a market cap weighted index composed of common stocks of 500 leading companies in leading industries of the U.S. economy, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average is a price-weighted index of 30 actively traded blue-chip stocks.
So that was a legal disclaimer, and that's the first legal disclaimer ever articulated on any show on the Compliance Podcast Network. So in 3,500 podcasts, you guys are number one for having a video pod on the Hill Country Podcast, and now you're our first legal discllaimer.
We're special.
Thank you. Feel
Very
honored.
special. So why don't you tell us a little bit about where you grew up? And Gilbert, can I start with you?
You know, I was born and raised in San Antonio. I'm the youngest of 9 kids. My parents were, my dad used to always like to say that they lived next to railroad tracks, but that's not exactly accurate. I'm 50 years old now, but I grew up with a bunch of siblings. I have I guess you could say 2 groups of families, because my older siblings are much older than me. In fact, they have kids that are older than I am. The second group of kids is me and my brothers and 3 sisters and a brother that I'm very close to. My dear parents, they're both gone already, but they were an amazing couple. And as you can imagine, growing up with 9 siblings, you learned how to eat really fast, because if you waited too long, there wasn't going to be anything left. And you learned that when mom called you that dinner's ready, you showed up quickly. Otherwise, like I say, the food would be gone. Born and raised in San Antonio, though, had a wonderful childhood. You know, didn't have much to go around, but I always had parents that loved me and cared about me, and they always encouraged me to get an education. You know, because having coming from a modest background, it's real simple. You can either stay that way or you can improve yourself. And I figured real quick that, you know what, I think I'm gonna get an education, because I wanna do something different with my life. So grew up on the south side of San Antonio, and not always the best schools, the best neighborhoods, but it was an interesting community. It was very insulated and sheltered, I guess you could say.
So how long have you been in Kerrville?
I got transferred to Kerrville in 2005. I was working for a big bank, and they transferred me out here in 2005. And I'll never forget when they first told me that I was going to move to Kerrville. I said, the first question I asked my boss was, "Where's Kerrville?" Because, I'd never been out of San Antonio. I mean, I did a little traveling, but, mostly to the coast and what have you, not anywhere in the hill country. And I had no idea where Kerrville was. But they transferred me in 2005, and I made the mistake of bringing my wife here one weekend to think about moving, and she said, "Absolutely not. We're not moving there. It's no way, no how." But we were living in San Antonio, and I told her we can't continue. I can't continue driving back and forth. It's just too far. So we compromised and we settled on Bernie. So even though I've been working here since 2005, I lived in Bernie for the first from 2005 to about 2012, and so I've been living in Kerrville for about 10 years now.
How about you, Andrew? Where did you grow up, and what brought you to Kerrville?
So I grew up in East Texas, in the oldest town in Texas, in Nacogdoches. Stephen F. Austin is there. So after high school, I went to college there. I somehow graduated. I stayed around for like an extra year. I had fun, though. I met a lot of great people that I still talk to today. But yeah, so I moved after college. I moved to the Dallas area for about a year. I worked in sales for a mattress company who had ties back to the CEO had ties back to Stephen F. Austin, and so some of my buddies were working up there. So that was my first big boy job. I lasted about a year, and just life being what it was, I didn't want to stay in that career path. I needed to find something new. I had some extended family down here, so I kind of knew about the Texas Hill Country. But long story short, I moved and got a job in the bank, and that's how I met Gilbert. And I started working in Ingram, at one of the banks there. Yeah, so it was small town USA, but that's what I wanted. I'd spent some time in the big city just long enough to know that I didn't like it. I didn't want to be there. That wasn't the life I wanted to pursue. So the banking world opened up a whole bunch of different opportunities. That was 2013 when I moved here, so it's been right at a decade. I have a wife now. She's a Tivy graduate. Her family's here. I'm growing roots here. Now we have a business here. Our clients are all local. So definitely have blossomed since 2013 of being here. But yeah, it's all good things. It's all beautiful. It's been a great journey so far. So yeah, I've been here about 10 years and grew up in the oldest town in Texas.
So what led you guys to found the Texas Hill Country Advisors?
Well, it's pretty simple. We just got tired of working for a big commercial outfit. I've been licensed as an investment representative for 25 years almost, and Andrew has been licensed for just a few less, but he's been licensed a long time. And both of us work for this big bank. And golly, when I first started working for those people back in 2001 in San Antonio, it was a much smaller organization, much smaller outfit, and you felt like a family. You felt like you were part of a family. But over the years, that changed. They got bigger. They bought out some other mega bank, and it just became this big giant enterprise where their focus wasn't anymore on helping people. It was more about how can we make as much money and sales off of clients. It was no longer helping people. And I just got so burned out with that attitude, and it was getting worse over the years. It was just getting more and more progressive. And I decided, I love what I do. I love being a financial advisor. I love helping people, but I can't work for this big outfit anymore. And in our business, it's real simple. You either put up or shut up, and so you can, if you don't like where you're at, you can move somewhere else. That's fine. But guess what? All of the big investment banks are the same way, or you could just quit that and be independent. Thankfully, thanks to technology and what have you, you're able to separate yourself from a big outfit and put your own flag in the ground and say, this is what I'm going to do, and this is how I'm going to do it. And so it was just a matter of doing some research and making the decision. And I'll never forget when I told Andrew to come with me. I told him it's either going to be the best thing we ever did or the dumbest thing we've ever done. It'll work out one way or the other. And thankfully for us, it's worked out pretty good.
Yeah.
So, what's the business of the Texas Hill Country Advisors?
Sure. So, we're independent financial advisors, as Gilbert just kind of touched on.
We stress the independent part.
That's right, because sometimes when you work for a larger outfit, or at least as a financial advisor, if you're kind of an employee of another company or entity, a lot of times that lends itself to kind of tainting how you as an advisor give advice to people. So sometimes there can be some biases in there as far as how the company's philosophy or how they see things, or even stuff from their compliance side of however they've set up their processes and their business models, right? And you kind of have to bend to that. The independent channel allows us to express ourselves in whatever way that the client wants, right? So we really and truly work for our clients. There's not an in-between party in between us and the client giving us suggestions about, hey, well, we see it like this, and we think you should sell this or should sell that. It's very what do you as a client want? And we can really take that and build that out and run with it. And that's just not something that some of our competition can do, frankly.
Yeah, and I'll share one other thing. I'll expand on that just a little bit. It also allows us to decide on who we're going to help. In other words, the company that we used to work for, they started instituting account minimums, is what they call it. And that means that if you didn't have at least $250,000, we as a financial advisor could not help you locally in person. We were required to send you to a call center if you had less than 250,000. They've since moved that up to $500,000. And there's nothing wrong with that. I understand completely. They're a big organization. They're going upstream. But, we're not a San Antonio or an Austin or Houston where you have clients like that coming in your front door all the time just because you exist. In a small town like Kerrville, yes, we do have those kinds of clients, and no doubt we would be more than happy to help out people like that. But there's also people that only have $10,000 or $1,000 to start with, or $2,500. There's people that are out there that need help, and if you try to send them to a call center, that's not a real helpful solution. And so, working as independent advisors, we have the ability to decide who we're going to help and how we're going to help them. In addition, we also have a bigger menu of options to offer to people. If you're an advisor and you work for a big organization, they are the ones that decide what's on the menu, nobody else, because they have a very limited menu because they purposely want it that way. They're going to let you offer services and products to people that pay them the most. And nothing wrong with that. Again, it's just a different way to offer services. And for me and Andrew, we want to be able to help anybody that comes in here. In fact, we do a pretty decent job of telling people it doesn't matter who you are, how much you have, if you have anything at all. If you just have financial questions, need help with some kind of a financial situation, we'll try to help you if we can. Sometimes there's not a lot we can do. We can just point you in the right direction. But we both have helped people that had no investments at all. They just needed help. Andrew helped a little old lady one day structure her payments,
Yeah.
her limited income. He gave her tips and ideas on how to structure her limited income on her liabilities that she had. I spent 2 hours a few weeks ago with a gentleman that had no money to invest, except he got involved in this credit counseling business that was really not doing anything for him. And I helped him understand what it was, what it could do, what it couldn't do, and gave him some ideas on what he should do going forward. And so, we just want to help people. And I've always told Andrew that if we just help people first, everything else will take care of itself.
And you've almost answered the question I wanted to ask, but we're here in Kerrville, in Kerr County, which is really unique in counties in Texas in terms of its income, from literally highest of the high down to a population who have the economics of a rural county in Texas. So that you can literally have that type of client walk through your doors anytime, and it would either require you or give you the opportunity to utilize a lot of talents in a lot of different ways.
Absolutely. And Andrew, I think maybe that's a good segue to talk about our financial literacy that we do.
Sure. So one of the passions that Gilbert and I have is for financial literacy. And when we worked for the institution that we were at previously, that was one of the things that I kind of had latched on to. Had the opportunity to facilitate some financial literacy classes for employers and even like teenagers and all across the board. And they had
that was one thing they did well.
Yeah, and they actually provided curriculum that is provided through, I think it's a nonprofit arm that they have. It's pretty neat resources that are out there. But nowadays there's just tons of stuff online. So I did a certification to get access to a certain pool of resources through this independent company that has a bunch of financial literacy resources out there online, and you get a certificate and all this kind of stuff. But they have, I was most impressed with their pool of resources. So I used a lot of what they had to create curriculum around specific topics for financial literacy, and we've deployed it on a number of occasions. I got a few things going on right now with it. But yeah, it's a passion of ours, and we're able to offer it to people that are right here in our community, that are like community members, business owners, employees, whatever it is, right here in our community. And it's pretty powerful to be able for us to offer something like that we're passionate about, but because it changed both of our lives. We have our own stories about that, but to be able to, pass that message along and pay it forward, so to speak, to people that we share a community space with is special. It's special to us.
Yeah, one of the things that I've always found in this business is that the biggest impediment to having investors invest is education. We do a pretty poor job in this country, unfortunately, of educating people on personal finance. Now, some of those things are offered in some schools, but we don't have a real big emphasis on that in our educational system, unless you're going to college and you major in those types of things. In high school, it's a really tough sell. And if you put young people who will eventually be older out into the environment without educating them about the choices they're going to have when they get older, we can't be that surprised if they screw it up. In other words, they don't know about the importance of investing and saving. They don't know about the dangers of debt and liabilities and credit. They just don't have the knowledge to protect themselves. And I think for all of us here, we can always say that it's the things that you don't know that will get you in trouble. and so financial literacy, to me and Andrew, is a big part of what we want to do, because we just want to pass on information that's helpful to people. And we don't care if you're the most novice investor all the way up to the most senior investor. There's something to be learned in financial literacy for all of us, no matter how old you are.
Well, I will share with you, I was in my 50s when I learned that if you send the IRS a little package once a year, you don't get nasty letters from them. I don't know why I didn't ever learn that before, but it was pretty simple. Just once a year, they were happy to hear from me.
Yes.
Maybe some money in there, maybe not.
Well, it was a full package.
Yeah, sure.
Lots of items.
Yeah, it's usually better if you talk to them, initiate the conversation, because if they have to initiate it on their end, that's usually a lot worse for you.
Well, let me turn to a different topic, which is pretty near and dear to the three of our hearts, and that's social media. And you guys came to my attention because you were on Louis Amstoy's The Lead, and you gave, I would call it a daily market report, but you might call it something else, but talked about what the markets were perhaps going to look like. And what intrigued me the most was you would give a few words about economic announcements or developments that might be coming out that day that we could look forward to hearing about or reading about later that afternoon. Then we were on the same show last week, I think. So I really wanted to explore with you guys, how did you come up with this strategy? How has the experience been for you? I've seen you guys live with Louis. I've seen you dial in from the studio we're recording this. How did you come up with that idea, and what's that experience been like?
You want me to do that one?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Well, it's been a journey. I think you said that word. That's a key word. If you go on our YouTube page, we intentionally left like the first few videos that we recorded up there on purpose. And
They're
it
pretty
is
funny.
literally, it is two guys standing in front of an iPad on a tripod trying to remember lines. There's a reason we're advisors and not in Hollywood acting or anything.
got that right.
So it really stemmed from we needed a multi-prong approach to market ourselves and market our business and what we were doing now after we left out from where we were previously. We didn't have a steady stream of people walking in the door and constant interaction. So we had to drum up a way to, create that. And that's part of marketing. And, so that's kind of where it stemmed from, was obviously from a marketing standpoint, but we knew social media was going to have to be a part of the equation. We just didn't know how big of a part. And once we kind of opened that door and kind of went down that rabbit hole, just started to expand. We started with the Facebook page, and then a YouTube page, and then we got some of these ideas. Well, we can record videos and put our stuff out there, and we didn't really know much more than that. Just that there was other people out there doing it. There were platforms to do it on, and we had the, I don't know, hard-headedness, the stubbornness to say I'm not a technical person, but I bet I can figure that out. And that's where it all started from. And it just kind of grew on its own. So at some point in there, after we kind of been doing some social media stuff and interacting with our new business, we came across Lewis. He was doing his own thing, had started his own path and journey, and that seemed like a good connection to have, to maybe talk about some of the stuff we've talked about with you and just see where that went and how we could get on his show maybe and talk about our business. And that was that. And we just ran with it since then. So eventually, after spending time with Lewis, we said we could do our own show. And then he said, well, I can produce it for you, and you can come on here once a week and talk about the market stuff. And we did that for a while, and I post those on YouTube. And eventually we got to the point and said, well, hey, why can't we just get our own equipment? So that was definitely Gilbert's idea, but that was it. And then, now here we are recording on it, and we're talking about trying to, what we can do to build off of the resources that we now have and our experience that we have with it. So,
well, and I'll say this about the whole idea of starting a podcast. We, as Andrew said, the place we were before, we really didn't have to work that hard for new clients because people were constantly walking in, new customers. We had access to their bank account information, so we could tell how much they had in their bank account, and we could target people, and we had a lot more. We were more spoon-fed, I guess you could say, working for that institution. But when we went independent, all of a sudden that was taken away from us, and so we knew that we had to figure out a way to develop a pipeline of potential future customers, and frankly, as a business owner, a new business owner. And starting out fresh, we had a very limited marketing budget, very limited. And I'm talking less than $100 a month to start with, because we're trying to get our business up off the ground. We don't know if it's going to work. Things started out, slowly because it was the pandemic, and so there was a lot of factors. But the number one factor was create a pipeline, and then the number two factor was limited budget. And what can we do to get our message out there to our local community, and still keep a lid on that budget. So we brainstormed, and thankfully Andrew is much more tech savvy and social media savvy, and he has a presence, and he, it might have been my idea, but we came up with it together, and he's thankfully taken that ball and run with it very, very well.
So unfortunately, we are near the end of our time for this episode, but I was wondering if anyone wanted any more information on either of you guys, any of the topics we've touched on, or the Texas Hill Country Advisors, what would be the best place for them to go?
Good question. We have a website, texashillcountryadvisors.com. We have a YouTube channel. We have that's Texas Hill Country Advisors also, and then we have a Facebook page, and that's where we do most of our social media stuff. We do a lot of live podcasting or live streams there. If you get on Facebook, look for us. You can like our page and then agree to get notifications. And then, of course, too, we have a phone number, 830-955-9900. We have people call us all the time. And then if you're really old-fashioned, you just want to stop by our office, you can. We're at the Kerrville South Tower right next to the mall. We're on the 5th floor, Suite 527. We're glad to take your phone calls. You can make an appointment just to make sure we're here, or you can just show up. We're okay with that too. Might have to wait a little while if you just show up, but if you call us first to make an appointment, that's probably better.
Well, gentlemen, this has been great. Appreciate the disclaimer, and I look forward to continuing this conversation.
Thank you, Tom. We do too.
Thank you, Tom.
All right.